Good morning, home church. Nothing?
Good morning, guys. How are you?
Well,
I don't know why I'm asking. Like I can uh, hear
like
an
they're in the
answer,
room.
and yeah, like they're in the room with us.
So, today we have the double trouble, the Morton family with us.
Double trouble.
What?
Welcome, welcome. Thank you for both of you for being on the podcast. We greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you guys.
It's our pleasure.
So normally, how
Closer.
we start off the podcast is asking you guys to share a little bit of your testimony, and then we kind of just let the Holy Spirit go from there. Um, Share, you know, as much as you want or as little as you want, and we'll just ask some follow-up questions, and we can get as deep as you guys want to get. So there's no pressure or anything like that. Nathan and I are pretty laid back and won't make you guys answer anything you don't want to. We may ask some hard questions. We may laugh. We may cry. Nathan cries more than I do.
Sounds about right.
We're just to give everybody that's listening a heads up of what we're going to do on this one. We are going to have a part one and a part two. So we're going to go for a little bit and then we're going to pause. So we're going to start off with Tyler, and then I sometimes branch off and we go a different route for a minute and come right back to it. So part one is mainly going to be Tyler and Tyler's testimony, and then we're going to go ahead and stop it, and we're going to go ahead and re-record, or not re-record, but I guess technically record Dana's testimony. And like I said, we'll probably veer off, and then it'll somewhere in the middle they'll talk about their marriage, and that's what's going to happen. So part one will be Tyler, part two will be Dana, but they are both here with us, so you will hear them intermittently probably chime in on their side of the story if we ask for it or something like that. So just giving everybody a heads up, that's what the game plan is. And that's where we're going to start off. So we're going to start off with Mr. Morton. Tyler, how are you this morning, sir?
Doing well. How are you guys?
We are
Good.
we're
Good.
blessed. We are
Good.
blessed.
Heck yeah.
So whenever most people look up on the stage, which gentleman are you that they see on stage?
I would be the guy by the drum kit playing bass.
And not only do you just play bass on the stage, you do a lot of the behind the scenes. And we've talked about you and Dana both, what you do with the worship team. And uh, one of my favorite days I think that I've had was whenever we all went to the farm. I always forget the name of it. But you
Rutledge.
guys,
Oh yeah, Rutledge
yeah.
Wilson.
But you guys got that coordinated. You guys spearheaded that deal. So not only are you just doing bass, what is it that people don't necessarily hear from the stage that you do in the background?
Yeah. So that trip to Rutledge Wilson is what we call it
Worship day
Appreciation.
out.
appreciation day or a team day. And that's actually spearheaded by Dana. She comes up with those, and we try and do one once a quarter, I think. So that was that particular quarter's hangout. So, but yeah, she put that together. I guess we all do as a group, but she's kind of the creative behind all that. So, now what I do behind the scenes, I guess I've kind of termed myself the team coordinator. So what I'll do is just organize set lists. I'll make sure that all the team members have chord charts, everything they need to rehearse from home. If there's a key change, I'll make sure that gets updated in the system with new chord charts. I can be a point of contact at any time if something's not loaded up, or if there's a change that I'm not aware of that we need to change, or a team member needs a different chart, because some of our guitar players will need different versions of a chord chart, like same key but just a different style. Anyway, I'll make sure that gets updated and ready for them to be able to rehearse and use during rehearsal and Sunday mornings. We also have, and a lot of people will probably notice if they've attended home church since the beginning, is that we've kind of moved away from the multiple music stands up there with all the papers, paper charts and stuff that you've seen probably fumble through. We've moved over to iPads now. which are really nice because we can just digitally load all the chord charts up there to use, much more organized. So I'll load those up for each rehearsal and each Sunday, for whether it's myself or whichever other team member needs it. So just kind of organize the team, get everything prepared, make sure all the practice and materials are ready to go. That's really it.
And that's the thing, you talk about stuff that goes unnoticed. Just because people hear the wonderful worship music, and it is God up there on the stage.
Right.
But God has asked certain discipline out of certain things, and some of that is practicing. Some of that is devoting free time to Him, and both of you definitely do that for the worship.
Right.
Whenever it comes to the behind the scenes and tracking and just to get a rough estimate, you just made the comment you're always available. How often would you say between practicing, because I know I've heard you talk with Clay Woolley about wanting to play the acoustic, so not only are you just staying to the bass, you're trying to learn something new. So whenever it comes to sort of the acoustic and the bass, how much time do you devote strictly to just playing an instrument weekly?
So as far as like preparation for a Sunday, typically what I do is I'll carve out time, typically on a Monday night now, because that's the night before rehearsal, which is Tuesdays. So I'll carve out, a couple hours, depending on the set list. If there's a new song, maybe longer, to go out. I have a little practice space I've made in my garage, so I'll go out there and spend some time. And that's strictly bass right now. I have a history. When I first learned to play guitar, it was strictly guitar, like 6-string electric, acoustics, things like that. And we helped launch a church back in the day, and they had a need at bass. They had what seemed like 10 guitar players, so they didn't really have a need there. But so I switched to bass back then. But I still carry, some of that guitar talent with me. So even though I just, I'll strictly stick to the bass in preparation for Sundays, because that's my my spot right now. But throughout the week, I have an acoustic at home. I'll pick it up and try and kind of regain some of those skills that I've had before, playing some of our songs, in hopes that maybe someday I might be able to fill in in a guitar spot or something. It's just being able to be fluid and be free, just in case we have an open spot or something, because we're very blessed with bass players actually. Yep. Which is kind of uncommon in church teams.
I do like how you made that comment, though, that they needed a bass player, so that's what you. So if you had to choose, and it wasn't like we had a plethora of everything, and they said you have your pick of instrument to play. What is it? Is it acoustic that you would like to play? Would you like to revert back to that a little bit, back to the 6-string, or what?
I don't know. That's tough, because as I've really learned and dug in and deep dived into the bass over the years, because I've been playing the bass now essentially full time for 12 years now or something like that. So I'm truly comfortable with it, and it's a fun instrument to play. So yeah, I'm most comfortable on it, but I think if I could go back and have 12 years with one, I don't know if that was the question or not, but if I could go back, I think probably sticking with guitar, because I think at this point in time, especially with wanting to kind of dive in deeper with vocally and singing more, it would be nice to be able to grab an acoustic and and sing like you see so many teams have. That would be a lot better than, because it's pretty tough, leading songs and singing from the bass, because of how rhythmic, you have to be on certain rhythms and things like that. That's kind of tough to sing along with. But I don't know, it's tough to say, because I love playing the bass. I'm so comfortable with it now, and it's a fun instrument, especially once you can really feel it. You make people feel the songs, and it's nice.
And you made the comment too that you are sort of getting back, or kind of background vocal for a little bit, and you're getting back into it now. It's a need for the church to have a male voice up there, so here he is stepping up again. For those of you that may not know, that whenever you don't hear Nathan Winfield, you hear a male voice on the stage. It is indeed our bass player as well. So, again, filling a need that the church needed, and it's much appreciated. So we're going to go ahead and start the dive into sort of what, obviously somebody who's playing bass, worship is something that intrigued you enough so that you're learning multiple instruments, multiple um, basically side quest in a video game options. You're choosing those
Right.
too.
Yeah.
So whenever you're young, were you in church a lot as a kid, and it was worship that intrigued you, or how did your love and connection with worship, when did that begin?
Yeah. So I wouldn't say so much as a kid. Of course, I grew up in a church family from the beginning. As a kid, my family was pretty heavy into church. We attended a church in Republic, and we were just always there. Wednesdays with grandma cooking, cooking meals. There on Sunday morning, Sunday nights, Wednesday nights. It was just always ingrained. But it was a Baptist church, and we didn't really do. I don't have a whole lot of memories of worship other than like kind of play the CD and sing along with it. So, and it was nice. We were singing hymns and stuff, but it's like, open your hymnal and sing out of it. And that's, I think it goes, I don't know, it goes back a little bit. I think it's just kind of related to my relationship with God at the time. It just, as a kid growing up in a church family, it's just like, it's what you do. So you do that, you follow along. I mean, obviously you're a believer, but as a kid, it wasn't until later in life that I had that true, real, like authentic relationship with God that worship could really bring me to places to do. So I think growing up, I mean, sure, I like the words and I like the hymns, but it's just kind of what we did. And it wasn't until later that I finally did, have that connection with worship, as I was a little bit older. So I think kind of just as a kid, like I said, it was just being involved in church.
Yeah.
I can't say that I necessarily had, I got saved as a young, kid and everything. And it was just kind of what I was supposed to do. Like, okay, you're old enough now, walk to the front, get saved. But then as I, got older and started learning an instrument, that's kind of where it all worked out for me because I was able to kind of put that in action. So I was able to take an instrument that I'd learned and then once again a need. I know this is kind of fast forwarding a lot, but I found myself in a position to help a small church that they were just launching. It was just me, a keyboard player, and another vocalist. And it was in those moments as I started for the first time ever actually playing worship music, because there's a lot of worship leaders now. You'll hear them say their favorite like worship song in youth. I don't really have a story like that because it was different for me. I didn't really put all that together until I was a little bit older. But yeah, once that hit, it was kind of done. That's kind of how I put my relationship with God. It's how I connected the dots, is like through worship, and so it kind of went from there.
So did you go to, obviously, high school? Did you go to college?
Technically, yes. Out of high school, I thought I wanted to be like, I didn't know what I wanted. Obviously, I remember having conversations with what is it, the college and high school?
Your counselor.
Yeah,
Yeah,
counselors.
your counselor.
Yeah, there we go. What do you want to do when you grow up? And all these kids, a lot of times they'll, especially in high school, early college, will have like these dreams and know exactly what they wanted to do. But I didn't. I had no idea. So then I decided, with kind of some outside influence, that maybe I wanted to go into the medical field. So I ended up taking some classes at OTC to try and work on like prerequisites and stuff needed to trying to get into the radiology program at Cox South, and I was working at the hospital at the time, so it all kind of met. I kind of went all in. I got a job at the hospital. Of course, my mom worked there, so I had that connection there. And then, anyway, to answer the question, a little bit of college, but it wasn't ever a graduation thing or a degree thing. I kind of, looking back on it, I wasted a lot of money and a lot of time, but it is what it is.
So in this whole sort of figuring out, you're working at the hospital, when does this whole relationship between you and your wife happen? Is it early on?
No, it wasn't early on. Um, so yeah, whatever. So as I mentioned before, my my entering into worship story and my meeting Dana story all kind of collide. I actually started dating a girl out of high school that I didn't know at the time, but would later lead me. This relationship would lead me to Dana, but also led me into worship. So it's all kind of like a starting point. So I started seeing this girl out of high school, and it was her family that started this initial church that I found myself playing guitar for, first ever worship experience. And time, moved on, a lot of things. We won't get into it, but anyway, it's through that circle that I found myself in, her friends and family, that I later ended up even knowing the existence of Dana, because she had recently moved to Springfield, back to Springfield from Texas, and I found myself at a gathering with them later down the road, yeah, met her there for the first time. What?
A gathering.
Well,
through worship, you said that was kind of how it gathered, and we'll go back to that church.
Yeah.
You started to play guitar.
Uh-huh.
How long did it take you to pick that up? Like, was that something that was pretty easy for you to transition into, or was?
So I had been playing guitar, so even earlier than that instance of playing worship, so I was in like garage bands, because I come from a pretty musical family. My uncle, he's a really good guitar player. He plays downtown a lot in bands, different bands, and my sisters always sang. My mom sang in church. I was in choir and in band and stuff in high school. Played the trombone, not in high school, middle school, sorry. But anyway, we were always just kind of musical. So I was working at a restaurant, and I was actually in high school at the time, and these guys that I worked in the kitchen with, they were all guitar players, drummers, bass players. They were all like it was like 2003 or whatever, so kind of garage band, grunge, rock,
Yeah.
Era. So anyway, I found myself hanging out with these guys, and I was like, what, I don't play an instrument, but I was like, I'll sing for you guys, because I could sing. And so that's what we did. We just started this initial band, some guys from the kitchen back there, and we were just writing songs, just playing around. It was kind of dumb, but we were having fun. So anyway, as time went on, I was like, it'd be cool to learn how to play guitar, and sing. It'd be like, frontman, guitar player guy. So I just learned all of our songs, and then I started just learning covers to songs I liked. And essentially self-taught myself guitar. So anyway, so I guess what I'm trying to say is I had a history with guitar before this moment. So then once I found myself in this situation with them, and they were wanting to start their worship team, when we first launched this church, I was like, well, I can play acoustic, and then her mom played keys, and then she sang. So we were like a little three-piece worship team, essentially sitting in this living room of sorts when we were starting this church. So I'd never played worship songs before, but I could play guitar, so that was really my first experience with, these are the songs we're going to play, and it's just like we do now, just pull up the chord chart, learn to play it, and we'd practice, and just kind of went from there.
So when your music genre style, whenever you're younger, is it more, because you said, it's kind of the punk rock, grunge type stuff.
Yeah.
Was that your musical interest kind of in high school and a little bit out of high school, or were you more of like the sort of, I guess it's the alternative Christian music? Was that more your thing? Like, because I remember, like, obviously, a little bit of an age difference between us, but like Reliant K was kind of whenever I was 16, in that time era, but it wasn't like my favorite type. Like it was more of the hip hop and stuff like that. But
Yeah.
So have you always been sort of geared towards the Christian music, or you'll dive into anything really?
I have not actually been geared towards Christian music, at least at this point in time. It was all like you said, you know, I think in middle school and high school it was
Green Day, you had
Green
Green
Day
Day
and Korn, and
Yeah.
all those like
Blink
new
182,
rock
yeah.
bands,
yeah.
all that stuff, yeah. And really that was it. And then like you said, like hip hop as I moved into high school, all those popular stuff around 2004.
Lil Wayne and
Yeah.
Yeah,
That emo
all that stuff. So
grunge kind of stuff. It's
I
kind
mean,
of
when I was
strange.
younger, I mean, like, I'm blanking hardcore. Toby Mac's group. We're all blanking. Jesus Freak.
Oh, DC Talk.
Yeah, DC Talk. I mean, they were like
Yeah.
they were like the first kind of like secular kind of Christian. So I mean, I was really into them, and I think the church at the time we were at, like it would be popular to like have those songs playing in youth group and stuff. But as far as like actual Christian music, it was kind of a random occurrence. I just found myself right place, right time. And I was willing, and I was never not a believer by any
Yeah.
means. I didn't always like have the closest walk with God, especially like in this era of time, like middle school, high school, post high school, time frame, essentially before I met Dana. But I was always willing and ready, and so when the time came that even though I wasn't necessarily into worship music, and that's why I don't have really a deep like past with a lot of worship music, because there's a lot of people that bring up like stuff that they were really close to, like way back in the day, these old artists, these old songs, and I'm like, I have no idea who any of these people are, because I was kind of a late bloomer when it came to worship music and stuff like that. But when the time came to step in a role and fill that, I was more than willing to learn those songs and then just kind of go from there.
See, like as far as like Christian music goes, the last I remember, whenever I was really actually going to church, was Hillsong. Like the last time, I mean, obviously people have kicked him and all this kind of stuff.
Right.
But Hillsong was the big thing. So like coming into home church and actually having, the Bethel and the elevation worship and stuff like that,
Mm-hmm.
multiple names, knowing multiple artists now is weird because, like you said before, it never was really a musical interest to me. It was just kind of, you were forced to listen to this music because God said, if your ears listen to anything else, you need to cut them off. So I got to cut my ears off, and I can't listen to Green Day. I can't,
see.
all of this stuff. So you have all of this stuff pushed towards you, and it's kind of like, you know what? I don't want to listen to that now. You're telling me I can't listen to it.
Right.
So I want to listen to this stuff now.
Uh-huh.
So that was just kind of interesting that you say, that it was, really, it's not like your whole life. It was, you were interested in the Christian genre. It was, but so obviously whenever we're younger, we don't really remember things real well. So we're going to talk about adult Tyler now, and we'll talk about adult Tyler's walk with Christ. And so this stories can be with Dana involved or whatever, but I think there's always that first moment where you really have your first true moment of pushing your faith forward, where you want to give up, but you don't give up, and you see the fruits of that labor. We'll go into sort of that style of talk right now and dig a little bit deeper, because I think as a kid, you see Jesus and you see bubbly stories of Jonah and the whale and David, and they sort of cartoonize these stories, but I think it's good because obviously it can get kids interested in scriptures and stuff like that. But adulthood is where you really get to test those stories.
Right.
Those stories become reality, and you lean on those stories because you realize they're not just funny cartoons now. These men actually went through this stuff. So that's where we're going to start, bleed into right here.
Yeah.
When was that first moment for you, that first real moment of, you're all I have and I have to lean on you, and I know you've got it, we're going to push forward anyways?
Yeah, so I think that would start right at probably, I would say probably 4 or 5 months before I met Dana. Probably I was, not really attending church. I wasn't a non-believer by any means. was like lukewarm, I guess you could say. But I was living with roommates, and the lifestyle I was living was just not great. I remember just kind of finding myself in a place where I did start praying again, and I was talking to God, and I realized just like this is not who I want to be. This is not what I want for my life. I was thinking like in futuristic. I'm like, am I even going to find like a wife? Am I going to have kids? Like, am I having a family? Like, what's going on? Because this was probably, to give a timeline, probably early 20s. We hadn't met yet. So it was like, early 20s. So yeah, I just remember talking to God and just praying like I want out of this, lifestyle, because just constant like fluid dating and long-term relationship only to just be done with it, and short-term relationships and partying and just all this stuff that I just didn't want any part of anymore, really. So I did start praying that I would just I could get out of this cycle that I've been in and just move on with my life, and whatever he had for me, I just wanted to have a better life. So anyway, I remember like there was some relationships and some things I had going on in my life at the time that I got out of, and I was kind of trying to position. I mean, I didn't know it at the time, but I was positioning myself, to meet Dana. And yeah, fast forward, that's when we kind of, through an old circle of friends, because I'd been kind of disconnected from them for a little while. So once again, I feel like the whole thing was a God thing, whereas, maybe it was a sinful situation, but still, our connection happened through this. And then that's, I'd said before about like the party.
I wouldn't say sinful.
Well, I don't know.
What's like the common story, the commonality between all of the couples that we've had on, whether it's been our wives or it's been Leonard and Mandy, both of the sides have their side of the story where I wasn't in the right place and I had to get right, and then we met. So we talk about how, if you were to buy a brand new vehicle, and you hate to talk about love in a relationship like it's a vehicle, but the way my brain works, if I spewed everything that was in my brain all the time, you would all look at me just totally like, man, this guy is dumb. But when you buy a new vehicle, it comes to you. If you had to put it together and assemble it before you could actually enjoy it, it would be a whole different story. Like, it's going to take you, I'm going to be honest, I work in the automotive industry, and I don't know how to do an oil change on half the cars that come in. So to realize that, hey, we had to be right before we could move on and, get that going, is just, it's not ironic that that's the commonality in a relationship, these long-lasting relationships with God. So you said that, you're praying that to get out of this lifestyle, and, you had to get things right, a lot of things that you were working on. So whenever you realize this, you realize, hey, I've got to start centering my life around Christ, not myself. I've been there, done that, and still working on that. So to those people who may be in a spot right now in their life where it's like, hey, something just doesn't feel right, something's going wrong, what advice whenever you're in those trenches, you've been through it, what's some advice that you would give for those people right now that they're in the middle of it, and they're like you, something doesn't feel right, they've been chasing the world, they've been going after this, they've been going after that. You don't have to be 18 years old for this to happen to you. You can be 50, 60 years old and still not have this realization. So I don't want people to think that this is just stuck to an age of 20-year-olds and whatnots. But as somebody who's gone through this, what advice do you have for somebody that is saying, I need to get rid of this lifestyle, I just don't know how?
Yeah, I mean, I think my I think the first step would be don't be afraid to, to step out of the lifestyle. Don't be afraid to remove people from your life or remove habits or anything essentially in preparation for something more to come. I think so many of us want to wait for the new thing to happen while still kind of living. It's like inch by inch sort of thing. But I know, like, for me, it took, I don't know if we would have ever worked if, what am I trying to say? Essentially if I didn't remove some things first, you know what I'm saying? Because if I was still half foot in, half foot out, she would have probably, seen that from a mile away and anyway, wouldn't have worked. But I would just tell people, like, wherever you're at, if you're to a point where you really want to change, I mean, I know we all have a goal in mind. Like, mine was, I would really like to find that girl, that woman, that I can have a family with. That was essentially my thing. That was like a normal relationship that we can progress in life and become better people and all this stuff. But if I wouldn't have made changes in my life until I met her, that it never would have worked. So I would just tell people, don't be afraid to start making wholesale changes. If that's really something you want to get out of, whether it's a habit or a relationship or something, because you can be patient. It's okay to be in a moment of, and just like a level, like bring the highs down and, level every, stabilize your life and just kind of be for a minute. You don't always need like, new things happening in your life. You don't need to be grasping. You can just kind of be for a little while and just work on yourself.
Be thankful for what you have.
Yeah.
It's one of those things that's funny because we use this world as a crutch. So like whenever it comes to walking with Christ, you made the comment a while ago, you sort of leaned on both of them because you're like, if this God thing doesn't work out, it's kind of what you're doing. You're wanting to buddy up with both of them for both of the best of both worlds. And so to really put it in depth, you really have to let yourself go. And you really have to let yourself just realize, hey man, this isn't about you. And to let it go, you see, like you said, the fruits of the labor. If you hadn't have let it go, you hadn't have let yourself go, you wouldn't now have Dana. So Tyler could technically still be chasing Tyler's self and not have Dana right now, but he gave it to God. And what you give to God, God then in return multiplies it 10 times more. So not only do you have a wife, how many children do you have?
We have 2. We have a son and a daughter.
And the names? Ollie?
Ollie is our son, and Amelia, or Millie, is our daughter.
And which one is your favorite? No, I'm just kidding.
Which day is it?
Yeah.
For real.
Is it the 2 short-legged kids that are your favorite? Which of those 2 are your?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Our 2 pups. So we have 2 corgis, Penny and Rowdy. Penny's our female, Rowdy's our male. And yeah, it's hard to say on those 2.
It's so adorable. It's my favorite. Corgis are cute anyways, and whenever you have 2 of them together that are cute and fluffy, it's so cute. But we'll go back to the kids. So when in your life did you decide, hey, we're going to go ahead, we want to start having kids? Was that something that was planned, or was it kind of a, well, we're going to take this and run type thing?
No, it was planned.
Ish. I mean, it was planned because I told him before we got married that, because I was 29 when we got married, so I was like, let's go, we're going to do this whole thing right now,
Right, yeah.
So it was planned, but like it was really quick. Like a year after we were married.
Well, I think the timing was planned. We were just kind of like, we're going to start, okay, it's time to start trying. It wasn't like a, we didn't.
It wasn't a surprise, but
right.
It was
we
very
didn't
quick.
Yeah, I think the quickness is what the surprise was. He was like, okay, we're ready, we're going to start trying, and like.
I was pregnant.
Okay, we're pregnant.
We thought about it, I was pregnant.
Yeah, so that was, Ollie was born in 2012, so yeah, 2011, and we'd gotten married in 2009, so.
No, we didn't.
Uh-oh.
Oh,
no.
no.
2010.
Oh, 10. Okay. Yeah, we can edit that out later. I'm just kidding.
Jamie, Tyler needs your help.
Okay, so we met in 09.
Yes.
And yeah, we were engaged. We pretty much got engaged like right away.
6 months.
Well,
Nice.
closer than most. Yeah. Because like I said, I was
You
just like
it, then
ready.
You should have put a ring on
And
it.
that was a whole nother thing. Like coming into our relationship, it's like I had mammoth like 3 and 6 year like relationships that would just like end on like a dot, like just one day, or just like okay, like I'm just done.
Peace.
And yeah, and so when it came to us, it was
He
just so
started the
crazy.
ghosting.
Yeah.
You started the trend before
I
it
made
was
it cool.
popular.
I was out of there.
You
But
think
no.
he's playing, he's not.
Yeah. But with us, it's just like I don't know, there's just such a God connection, and I associate a lot of my, because you had brought it up earlier, a lot of, that God moment when you truly connect. Because because I was coming out of a place of questioning God, even lots of questions. I wasn't the closest.
He showed up to the party with another girl.
Well, not technically.
That's
Jamie!
Yeah.
Jamie!
I was invited.
We go back and forth on this.
Anyway.
Gonna have to go to that marriage counseling.
Yeah, but
Jamie, come get Tyler.
Gotta
She's
put him in
lying.
timeout.
All right, we're going to go to part 2. Dana's story.
okay.
So,
I just passed out for some reason.
Yeah.
but so you talked about how there's just that God connection between you two, and so throughout your marriage, we know how long have you guys been married now?
Going on 13 years in
August.
August.
Congratulations!
Woo!
I would hit the cheers button over there, but it'd
We're
take me
both,
longer to get over there. So I'll
we need
just
to get longer
clap.
cords for that bad boy.
So we talked about it for those that went to that little marriage retreat thing that the church had. They talked about how important it was to put God first. You have to realize, yes, your wife is important, but you have to put God first, and then you'll see the fruits of those labor kind of follow. So, and they also talked about how it doesn't matter if you've been married for 50 years or for 5 years, you're married. So if you guys have we've personally heard the stories about Tyler and your guys' marriage and some of the strains that was put on it, and we don't have to go into details on them if you don't want to, and that's fine. But my question to you would be advice for those who, in times of grief and in times of struggle, you're still here to talk about how great God is, and you're still here putting in the work and still multiplying in the church. It didn't stop you. You continued to go, and you're continuing to go, and it's by God that you're doing that. People need advice on that, because what happened to you, you could have said, I'm done. God, why did you do this to me? And it's harsh, but it's true. You didn't. And people need to understand the light at the end of the tunnel. What's advice? And if Dana wants to chime in too, she can in this, because this is kind of a combined question. We're kind of going on that road. What is advice that you would give? And we can be talking to married couples here, so if this is married couples, it can be that. But not just that. Whenever these things happen, what is advice that you would give that there is a light at the end of the tunnel, because people forget about that light at the end of the tunnel?
Are you talking about during marital problems?
No, not necessarily marital problem. I mean, it can be marital problems too. But the incident that happened and the marital problems, you push those aside. That, both of you could have said, hey, we're done. We don't want this. And we're not talking to Dana and Tyler. And we're not getting to enjoy the worship that through God you guys have endured and you put up through. What would you give advice to people that have made you able to do that and to say through it be the glory of God?
I mean, I think from my end anyway, it's just don't give up, really. I think either of us could have easily I think in so many couples, this is the case too. It's like the second they have issues, and there's a whole gamut of issues that could have brought you to the place of, disconnect and separation or divorce or whatever, but, and all of them would be valid. But I just think taking some time to look inward on yourself, I think, was my thing. instead of, in our situation, when we were separated, instead of like being like, oh, I have my freedom to now go and do things, unhealthy things or whatever, like so many do. I feel like so many, it's gotten to that point in so many marriages that it's like, I'm free. When things like this happen, that working on it isn't even an option for a lot of people, which is really sad. But I mean, all I can really speak for is myself. And it's just like, it's important to find yourself in a place where, you want to fight, for what you have. And fighting doesn't always mean like fighting to get her back, but fighting to make yourself a better person. Like I think that's something that needs to be concentrated on in these moments of like strife between couples. It's like, before you worry about what that person has to do to change to make your life better, it's like, what can I do to just to be just a better person in general? Because there was one point in time I was like, you know what? And, I was praying over us and everything. And I found myself in a spot where I was just like, you know what? If this works, that's awesome. But if it doesn't, like, I'm not going to let it the wording's weird, but essentially I was going to work on myself regardless. Mm-hmm. Like, and my mindset was like, obviously I hope we fix everything and we come back together like we did. But even if we don't, like, it's not like I'm wasting the energy on fixing myself, Right. So that was my mindset, just work on yourself. And ultimately that's what, showed her enough change, in our life that, that ultimately brought us back together. And so I think just don't be afraid to just, look inward and work on yourself, because that's one of the most important things you can do, I think, as a couple with issues. Because that other person's going to see that. They're going to see that change, and they're going to see that energy you're putting on yourself. And that makes, at least in our case, that made the world of difference. Because instead of just being like, freedom, run off, and I'm going to do all the stuff, and, just looking inward and working on yourself is truly important.
I would say, too, first of all, what he's saying is exactly what saved our marriage. And that, so, like, I would say that anytime I've ever talked or had any kind of conversations with married couples who are having problems, it's like each one is like, well, they won't, but they won't. I won't, they're not giving me this, or I'm not getting this from them, or this marriage is happening. These are the problems. Everyone's so focused on the other person. And what was unique about our situation is that, so I was hurt in the situation, so I turned inward, and we both were in counseling separately, and we worked on ourselves. But like, we needed to know that, like, in order to be good for the other, we had to be good for ourselves. And I think that, like, a lot of times wives are pouring out, and I know I'm maybe sounding a little stereotypical, but a lot of the complaints is that the wife feels like she's doing all the work, and I was just absolutely exhausted. And what's unique about Tyler is that instead of being like, well, she da-da-da-da-da, she's this person, she did that, and he could say all these complaints about why we were to where we were, but instead he got on his face before God and begged God for a transformation in his life. Did it happen immediately? Absolutely not. He had to fight through some demons, some big either to get to work, but he did the work. And right. And he never blamed me in any of it, because whether or not either one of you have involvement in what happened with her, you have to also take responsibility for your part in it. And even being victimized, or whatever I want to say about that, I still had my part in getting things to where they were. And it was a hard reality to accept. But also, if I wouldn't have, we wouldn't be here today. But I'd say Tyler is the reason we are good. Like, he just 180 turned his whole life around and has never stopped from that day pursuing me. He's never stopped putting in the work. He's in his word every single morning. He is so unique in his heart for the Lord and for his family, and that was what was lacking prior. it was like he gave himself the ability to be who he is today. As where before it was like something was holding him back. And he just decided to let go of all that and, pursue God. And I think, like what you're saying, he put God first, and that alone is seriously, I'd say, the trophy to our success is his humbleness before the Lord and his continued ability to do so. I'm not so great in that area. He is very good in that area. So.
Well, what you are great at, and what I attribute her, what am I trying to say here? What I attribute to what you did, like you just sat there and bragged on me this whole time, but so Dana, and I know this sounds easy, but she stayed. You stayed, and that's not always been the way she's handled things in her life.
No.
She's been a runner. Like, hard things happen, she'll hightail it out of town, get out of the relationship, get out of the city, get out of the state. It's just...
This is true.
She's been a runner, so, my prayer that I would have during our issues was that she wouldn't, that she would stay, and she proved that over the time. So just by her staying really gave us the chance to work on things. Like, she could have easily just
Looked for that
been
out.
gone,
Yeah.
looked for the out.
I mean,
like
I had
said
the out.
before, yeah. And she absolutely did. She could have either one of us could have said, okay,
Yeah.
this is too hard. We're too broken. We're too unhappy. We're done. And a lot of couples do that. But I think it was just a mix of me finally, because for the longest time, it's like, am I even happy in this marriage? Am I
Right.
even happy in this life? And I think a lot of men get there. But I think what happened to me is I finally found myself in this real issue where it's like, because I don't mind saying, like, I was staying at my sister's house, for a little while during this time, and I think it took, yeah, it took that, honestly, it took that to, like, click in me, like, this is real. This isn't just like go sleep on the couch, like, situation. This isn't just like, hey, I'm taking the kids for the weekend sort of situation. This is like, your life is going to change forever. So something clicked inside of me, this fight, where it's like it that proved to me that this is what I wanted. And I don't know, I should have had it all along, obviously, but it just, for whatever reason, I didn't. But once that happened, it's like my true potential as a husband and a father was, like, able to be, like, unlocked, or so. I don't know if that makes sense or not, but
What really changed my marriage, and this is something that God pointed out to me, and I really didn't respect our marriage until this, and you pray that God would put somebody in your life, and so I have these weaknesses of, like, when it comes to, and they're going to be silly, I know, but some of them are serious. Like, I don't like Walmart. She loves shopping. So she doesn't care if I go or not. That's good. Like, if I had a wife that it bothered her that I didn't go to Walmart, then that would frustrate me. So God was showing me all of these things that Brooklyn's good at and that I'm bad at, and all of these things that Brooklyn's bad at but I'm good at. And he was like, I gave you each other because that's my piece of me to you. You can't do these things, so I gave you this to help you. This is an actual physical form of me helping you. And that's why it breaks my heart when you disrespect her. That's why it breaks my heart when you don't put her on the pedestal that she should be on. That was really what clicked for me, was that sort of mindset that is God. It's not just some woman, it's not just, hey, this is what, and that's the problem. Society tells you you're supposed to get married, have kids, and go on. That is scripturally, you are supposed to get married, you are supposed to move out of the house, and you are supposed, yes, but they make it cliche, and they make it not important. They make it commercialized, it's just, oh, hey, you want a wedding cake? Here's a wedding cake on, there's
Right.
not that importance put into it. And so, like, in my mindset, with my parents getting divorced, I'm like, what is marriage anyway? Like, basically all you're just saying is, legally now, you want me to pay money to say that we were living together before. Like, and obviously that's not the right thing to do, but it's like, I have to pay money so you can say we're together. If, in my mind, if we're already together, but it is physically showing to everybody, no, that's mine.
It's creating a covenant.
Yes, that's mine, and nobody's going to take that from me.
Right.
And so that's, both of you were talking about that aspect right there. This is mine, and it shouldn't be taken from me. But the thing is it does get taken away because everybody just seems to think that it's cliche. You're supposed to be married, but not to just that one person. But you're just supposed to be married. So it's okay to get divorced, and that's what these kids see, and it's heartbreaking because when you belittle what a wife or a husband is to each other, that you just can't, and it's difficult because once the devil gets into one of the ears, it doesn't matter if the other one wants it. If that one's not the magnet to it, it's just gonna keep falling, and so you have to want it. And that was kind of what I was wanting to talk about next. Is whenever it comes to being as dedicated as you guys are to the church, and you have a family, what is some things that you guys do? Because people use the excuse, we're too busy. And I understand that that's a reality. People are busy. But God has all these things going on, and he's never busy enough to do these things for us. So when it comes to your time to dedicating to the church, I know, obviously, football, Vikings fan.
I can respect that more than like a Raiders fan or something like that.
And then you have, you enjoy... is it more dirt track race than NASCAR? Or is it more NASCAR?
No, it's NASCAR.
So people use the excuse, hey man, and I don't ever want to use this podcast to push home church, making people feel like they have to serve. I just want people to understand the importance of sacrifice that you have to give if you want to see an outcome. It's not about the hours spent. It's about what does it mean to you in your heart. So for somebody who has so much going on, people use the excuse, we don't have enough time for each other. What is a piece of advice that you would give? Because it's not like Dana's just a stay-at-home mom, and Dana's also doing a lot, not only on the worship team, but a lot behind the scenes. Not only behind the scenes, she's got her own job. Not only does she have her own job, she has 2 kids that both of you have together. So people want to use, the excuse, no, it was just difficult to work on our marriage because we didn't have enough time. Yeah. What do you guys do to make time in your marriage? Just people think you have to, engulf and take out all of these things. Like I said, football, and you still have time to watch these things and enjoy these things and keep your marriage wholesome. What's some piece of advice that both of you would give? Because like I said, it's not just Tyler that's putting in the hours and the work, it's Dana as well. How do both of you guys find time to sort of make this happen still?
Well, we're very unique because we've known nothing else our entire marriage. So, from the get-go, we were Oliver was an infant. In 2012, we were, helping a church plant. It's just it's been second nature to us our entire marriage. So we've never known any different. It's always just come, second nature. It's just this is just our life, serving in the church, sacrificing, rehearsing, all these things. So it's just kind of ingrained in us. So I don't know if I would necessarily have...
Well, I would say that, ministry is a priority to us, is what he's saying, because we do have jobs, and I'm fulfilled in my business, and I'm so unbelievably grateful to God for the success of it. But he's not fulfilled at his job. He likes his job. He's grateful for his job. He's very good at his job. But that's not where his fulfillment comes from, And so the reason we're so adamant is because his fulfillment comes from serving God. And he never wanted to be in full-time ministry, but this is his heart bleeds for that. So that's why we make it a priority first, is because this is where we find fulfillment in life, is by serving the Lord and by seeing people come to God and by seeing the success of a church and knowing we had our hand in it. And so I'd say we make it a priority, because some people, if we were sports mom and dad and taking to our kids to games all the time, we would not have time for the job. I can see why people whose kids are very much into sports and stuff but instead of like our kids being involved in extracurricular activities, they're involved in the church. They're here with us, doing the church thing. So that's one thing I'd say is unique. But also, we prioritize each other before anything else. So like, we may not have a family day where, excuse me, we get to like spend an entire day doing family activities like some families do, but the time we have together is spent together.
Yeah.
So like, we love watching shows together, we love grilling, we love playing games, we love all this kind of stuff. So like, going to movies is our, like, Marvel movies is our jam, so like,
I saw that picture, you guys went and saw the Mario movie and stuff like that.
We go see it. We make priorities. So like, you don't have to be like, we haven't spent time as a family. Well, yes, you have. You're in the same house with each other all the time. It's about being
present in the moment.
Yes. Yeah. So like, we don't sit apart from each other on the couch. Our arms are always touching. We don't. We talk all the time, and I think we make a point to communicate. I think the lack of communication in people's marriages is appalling to me at times. It was, ours was too. Absolutely. Communication is hard. And it's uncomfortable, and caring about what goes on undercover in Rogersville, Missouri is sometimes daunting to me. But like, to hear, because I love him and I care about how his day was and the things he encountered throughout the day, being intentional with like making eye contact and smooching and, like being, what is the word I'm looking for, where you're intentional about the time you spent touching and loving what each other loves. I could care less about the Vikings or NASCAR, but go Kyle Busch. You know what I'm saying? Because he loves it. I want to love it. And he could care less about, some of the things that I care about, but he could tell you all about my business. You know what I mean? So
I think what you're saying is it's not what you guys are doing, it's the fact that you're spending time together.
Yes, you don't have, it doesn't have to be like forced. Like, we're best friends.
Yeah. Being 100% present while you're there.
Well, and it's
and intentional, because again, it can be uncomfortable, but
there's something we said about, like, as a church, we talk about it all the time, like doing life together. Let's do life together as a community. But like, sometimes even in our own homes, we're not like doing life together with our spouse or our kids. It's like all these
doing your own separate thing,
separate things. And like what she was saying before, it's like, we're very intentional with our time, because we are devoted to the church and work and everything, but, it could be easy to say, like, and we've ran into this before, like, oh, I've had a hard day, we've done a lot of stuff for the church, we've done a lot of stuff at work, well, I'm going to go watch a game with my buddies or something, see ya, check it out, but we don't do a whole lot of that, and obviously there's time for it, and her with her girls, But
that's a reflection of, and so for those of you that are listening and you're like, oh, well, this is a couple, so this doesn't apply to me. So if you're single and you're listening to this, or this is just something that you mentally are just, you're having an issue yourself, this is something to be said about the reflection of Christ on you. You talked about, you don't care about the Viking. God doesn't care about if the Kansas City Chiefs win a Super Bowl or not.
I don't know. No.
But the thing is like, people get so wrapped around, a team winning or losing and stuff like that. God just wants to be with you and enjoy time with you. So if you're a Cardinals fan, if you're a Vikings fan, whatever, God doesn't care about baseball. He cares about it because you care about it, if it's something that you care about. So it's just, people don't realize that when you reflect, Jesus reflects that. He when you see the marriage and you talk about how it's fun, your marriage is fun and you enjoy it because you're both putting out that love. That's all you have to do towards Christ. And it's easier said than done at times, but when you simply put it, if you're watching a game or you're watching something or you're doing something, just some way try to involve God in it and enjoy your time and enjoy that with God. So you don't have to, God doesn't have to be a NASCAR fan or whatever it is to enjoy sitting down and watching a game with you. So whenever you two talk about, how you spend all your time, a lot of your time here with the kids, Ollie and Millie, obviously running around. Ollie is more or less going to be stationary. He's not going to be running around
He'll be
with
in
the
back.
kids. So you can really tell both of your kids have opposite personalities.
Yes.
And
Very much.
that's whenever you talked about how your guys' marriage operates, it's important that people understand that your marriage isn't going to be like somebody else's. So you're like, I want us to be happy like Dana and Tyler. Is it because Dana and Tyler, they're at worship practice, they're giving more time to God. The time that they're giving to each other is honest time. It's time that is meant. So you can really understand that God's got different situations for different people.
Yeah.
And so it's important that people understand Dana and Tyler aren't like Jamie and Clayton. They enjoy each other's company. They're friends, they're family, but you guys aren't like Clayton and Jamie.
We're very different from them.
Very,
Actually.
very different.
Yeah.
And it still works.
Mhm.
So that's what people need to understand. God doesn't just make cookie cutters. He doesn't have just a cookie cutter up there and sends
Right.
everybody out. And if you don't end up like this, you're going to hell. You're going to have different personalities. You're going to not want to be in big groups. Some people want to be in big groups. Some couples love going nonstop. Me and Brooklyn, we're old people already. We
So
like
are
to
we.
be at home.
Yeah.
So
Same.
you're going to have those different personalities, and you can still make a marriage work by, like
then-
you said, being
Then
pure and
sometimes
honest.
you get those people that want to be at home, and those that want to be.
Like
Go,
two
go, go,
different
go, go.
people.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Welcome to me and Caitlin.
Yeah.
Well, I think you can't be afraid to personalize your marriage. I think that there's so many
Absolutely.
stereotypes or whatever you want to call them. There's so many like traditional
People are so
roles,
idealistic on how
in
it's supposed to
marriage
go.
that it's like it's almost to a detriment because it's like you have to be willing to make it your own.
Well, and one thing to spin off that, so we have two special needs kids. Oliver is autistic and Millie is ADHD and all the things. And so our life does not look, like you said, Jamie and Clayton, they have, you picture like the perfect little home, like you're going to see them. That's very important to them. And that's how their marriage works. They have these sit down meals and they have, like family game night and they have this, like our kids and our life doesn't work that way. And so like, Oliver won't eat half the stuff I cook. 99% of the stuff I cook,
Like,
he won't.
Pretend
He'll
to
literally
vomit it
gag
out.
and try to vomit in the trash can. And like,
My
Millie,
boy,
Millie,
He was the one making the sounds earlier.
yes, he is very much like if I make him try it, he will. But yeah, it's very dramatic if I do. So like, and Millie is not an eater really a lot. She just like picks. So she'll eat a few bites and then she is gone because she can't sit still. So like
She's more of that grazer type.
she's very much a great.
And then we
If
eat
you
all of
touch
her
her food
leftovers.
though, she will
And then she's mad.
get so mad at you.
Well,
Yeah.
you left.
And it's her food's in there. She intends to come back to it. But no, okay. So like what I'm saying is like we had to realize that we have to figure out a different way for us because, it's sometimes us just like me and him sitting down and staring at each other and like hoping the meal tastes good and like communicating as where our kids are like gone, and so we're okay with that though. Like that's not something that we held to a high, like some people that's very important to them. To us, we connect in other ways. And sometimes because of the, Ollie's personality, we are going into his bedroom and sitting on his bed while he's doing his thing and we're talking to him that way.
Yeah.
We're meeting him where he's at. And Millie, it's like she hates to be sitting still. So we're, doing activities with Millie and things like that. So it's like, it's okay to like morph your life or like, we may have too much housework to do because we've had really busy lives and the church has been busy and outside life has been busy or whatever. So we have laundry folding parties, where we both hate doing laundry. So we're both connecting and laughing and talking
Right.
while we fold laundry and put it together, So like there is ways to like,
I'm not gonna lie, that sounds like a nightmare.
it is a nightmare, but like we neither, instead of fighting about it getting done,
I get
we
your point.
create
Yeah,
it to be, a time where we're just
And-
like throwing socks at each other, so.
We like to play the laundry game where you don't do it for a month.
Exactly.
And then you scramble at the last minute.
And that's when laundry folding party
Yeah.
comes
Yep.
into play.
And then
Yeah,
friends or family coming over and we gotta get this.
yeah.
cleaned up
Let's
real
hide
quick.
this under the bed.
We've got a laundry basement. That's what I like about it.
Yeah.
Don't go downstairs.
Yeah,
There's
that
a
is
TV
nice.
and there's recliners, but unfolded clothes.
Yeah, all over them. Yeah.
I mean, you got to personalize your marriage and make it unique. And something that my dad taught me way back when, I say way back, like it wasn't like 20 years ago.
Goodness.
No, but it.
You all right, Papaw? Papaw, can I sit on your lap, Papaw? Tell me stories. Back
Like-
when I walked uphill both ways.
Like 4 years ago when Caitlin and I were dating, he said marriage isn't easy. I mean, anything worth doing isn't easy.
Right.
So if it were easy, everybody would do it, and no one would be getting divorced or anything like that. So you have to carve out that time to make your relationship a priority, and that's what just can see from you guys. That's a testament, making laundry parties and meeting the kids where they're at, doing what you have to do to make everything work. And that's not only a testament to you guys, but a testament to God working through you and making sure that your family bond is strong. So Nathan and I applaud you guys for
Thank
that.
you. I think it's just
thank you.
realizing how exhausting it is to try to keep up with the Joneses and try to make your life look like somebody else's.
Very
It's
exhausting.
it's exhausting, especially when your life doesn't fit into that mold. We just decided to give up on that, and like I may do all the shopping and cooking, and well, he does a lot of the grilling and smoking, and
And
he's
he's
very
very
good at it.
talented at it.
Yeah. And so, like, we pull out the crock pot because we're going to be at the church all night, or, and we eat in the car on the way here. Or, like, and I may, I am really bad at keeping up on the dishes, but Tyler's really good at it. Or, like, it's like coming together and saying, these things bring me grief. Do you hate doing these things? Oh, I don't really mind doing those things. Okay, you do those things.
Right.
And I'm going to do these things that you hate doing. And, like, he doesn't like cleaning toilets. I don't care about cleaning the toilets, So, like, it's a matter of, like, just compromising and sharing your life together. And we didn't have that prior to when we were having problems. We were trying to fit our lives and make it seem like it's perfect. But life happens. Bad things happen. We've had a really rough go of it in a lot of areas. And so it's like, like, it's not worth it to care about all of this stuff. Like, so the dishes stay in the sink for a few days, but we get to spend quality time chilling on the couch together or whatever,
Well, and that's where communication comes into play, too, because it's like, you'd be surprised how many things are causing one person, like, grief and angst and anger and depression.
Or you think that person's mad at you for not doing something or whatever.
And so one person's struggling super hard with something, and the other person, like she said, is not a big deal to them. So it's like, that's where communication works, is like, okay, well, I can fill in here for you, take this off your plate, and now all of a sudden you're like a different person because you don't have this lingering over you, and I'll do it, dishes, laundry, whatever it is, or anything else.
Taking the dogs out.
Yeah. So I just think, communication about this stuff, like, because we never did that before. Is there something, what are your feelings on certain things? Like, it's important to go over these, or to be, and I think it's a lot about the person, because it's important to be open about, if there's something bothering you. It's really important, and I know maybe that leads to a disagreement or a fight, and
It's important to deal with it immediately.
Yeah.
Because no matter how, that's one thing that's really hard for us because we're both like, I don't want to chat, But, like, to deal with whatever, like, if I get upset, I say it immediately. I do not get mad at him and then hold on to it for a week, or vice versa. If I'm annoying him or whatever, it is an immediate, like, what is going on with you? What is our problem? We don't have time to, like, let it stew,
Well, and that's something we've learned from our
Counseling, yeah.
Yeah, from counseling and from our experience, because we never did that before. We're totally opposite. If something was bothering us either way, we would just push it in, and then
And apologizing a lot for, and thanking and loving, because, like, it's like you forget that, like, saying sorry really, really does, even if you're like, well, I didn't mean to, you're just taking that too personal or whatever. It's like, gosh, that was not my intention, and I am so sorry. Just taking responsibility for the other person's heart, because it's in your hands, is a really, really big deal. I think there are things that, like, when you've been through trauma, you get, I hate the word trigger, but you get triggered, and the other person doesn't know they triggered you. And so, like, for me to be like, why did you say that? That was really mean. And he's like, what did I say? Or whatever. And so immediately addressing is a really hard thing to do because it can be tedious. But, like, it is also very important to say sorry and, hey, I am so glad. Thank you so much for doing those dishes. I did not want to do those dishes. And it's like, well, it's no big deal to me, whatever. Well, it was a big deal to me, so I really thank you for doing that for me. You know, so like communicating even in the little ways is a really big deal, I think. Anyway, I know we've gone off about this forever, but
No, and I think this is a good point to kind of come to a slow down for the part 2, and we'll cut into Dana's testimony and stuff. But before we do go, we'll kind of cut back more towards Tyler. So as you continue to fill in the places where you're needed and stuff like this, whether it be vocals, whatever it is, what is one thing, because I know for a lot of people trying to get plugged into a certain area, a lot of times you just rush from the line, and I know I did. I think I signed up for like 7 different things to serve in the church because I was excited, just because I'd never served before. So for somebody who is wanting to find their place and wanting to maybe you're not going to home church, maybe you're listening from somewhere else and you're going to a different church. So this isn't just particularly for this church, but somebody who's wanting to get more connected and figure out where they belong in a church. What's some advice that you would give as somebody who does do multiple different things?
Yeah, I just think it doesn't have to be hard. I just think getting involved, just finding something you're interested in, and just getting in on a team, no matter what that looks like, whether it's hospitality, whether it's a door greeter. I think a lot of people think it's real showy to like be on stage or something. But honestly, when we were up and coming and building churches and planting them, I remember at Branson Church early on, I would, one of my roles, I would be like holding a sign out of the street on the Branson Strip, as like cars go by, and, filling coffee up and just, shaking hands. I just don't think, just don't be afraid to just get in, and you don't have to sign up for like a ton of different things. I just think being devoted, find what you're interested in, whether that's the worship team, whether that's, if you're a people person, hospitality, here, so greeting people at the doors, doing different things. Don't be afraid to not be seen, sitting back here, being in media, lyrics, different things. I just think knowing that there is a need for you is a good place to start, because I think so many people who are looking for places to serve just assume that there isn't a fit for them. But that's, couldn't be further from the truth. It's like there's always a need somewhere, So, I don't know if I have specifically one piece of advice to give to anyone, but I just think do it, get involved, sign up for a team.
And then I'll ask a final question, and if Zach's got any last ones before we wrap it up, I'll let him ask. But what is something, like, if for people that don't know you, and for people that don't, they may have seen you here at the church, or we don't really have you. One thing that we haven't really had a lot of the guests do is just sort of, if you had to describe yourself to somebody, let's just say me and Zach, you've never met us before, and you just wanted to give us, a brief you might not know about. Some people may have not known that you were a Vikings fan. Some people may have not known that NASCAR was your thing. So, I know we could go on forever and ever and ever, but just a quick clip of Tyler, of what you enjoy, what kind of, just anything, just a little quick snippet, a TikTok video of Tyler's life.
Well, I'm a pretty quiet guy who works really hard at not being. So, yeah, I just try my best to be open with people and talkative and chatty and the public, but just know the whole time I'm really just wanting to go home and chill. I'm a homebody. I definitely prefer to just be chilling at home. Like we talked about before, I like grilling, smoking meats, doing things like that. Watching YouTube videos on it, trying to learn and grow, finding new recipes, new ingredients, different ways of doing things. So that interests me. Obviously music, listening to worship music now, hearing new songs, new albums, and maybe it's not for the church, but, learning the song, singing along with it, playing along with it, just kind of expanding myself. So music is a big part of my life. Yeah, NASCAR. Been a big fan since I was a kid. I was kind of ingrained into it. My dad and grandpa kind of brought me into it when I was a kid, so we would go to races and stuff like that. And then, of course, big Vikings fan. So when I can squeeze it in, races on Sundays and games. So, during the NFL season, it's, kind of sharing the load with those two things. So into sports, into being at home, love my family, chilling with my wife, watching shows, going to the movies, so I don't know. That's about it.
Loves talking about himself.
Loves talking about myself. Yeah.
Well, we greatly appreciate you guys spending your free time here, and I hope those that are listening understand just the importance of what behind the scenes is, and just about how you're not greedy with your time, you're giving it up, and we don't take that lightly. And hopefully those of you that are listening got something out of that, and if you didn't, we've got another one loaded up in the barrel behind it. So, Zach, you got anything?
I think you guys pretty much covered it. I mean, so if I think of something, come back for part 2. So.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and we will be back briefly on a part 2. We will be talking to Dana Morton, talking about her walk with Christ and sort of her side of the marriage and what drives her and keeps her going. So we appreciate you, and we will be right back.